listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I experienced a spiritual awakening with wolves. When I met a wolf, they talked to me the same way people talk, and they taught me to read the energy of the heart. I can intuitively hear plants, animals, and people, and I became an intuitive healer and writer as a result. You can find me at onetrueself.com. We have a great guest today. It's about speaking, but it's also about finding your authenticity and letting that come through you. So our today's guest is Glickstein. He's a trailblazer in the field of public speaking and the creator of the globally recognized speaking circles method. Having overcome his own fear of public speaking, Glickstein spent decades helping others transform their relationship with audiences. His work has reached thousands of people across 8 countries and 6 languages. Impressive. His book is Be Seen Now, Inspiring Insights into Being a Fearless Speaker. And I would also say a less fearful person. Glickstein continues his mission to empower individuals to speak from their authentic self and connect naturally and mindfully, which for all of us who are on a spiritual path, sometimes it's so hard to know what to say or how to say it, and he's going to help us with that some today. So welcome, Lee. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Julia.
So tell us about what inspired you to write the book. What were your big thoughts that you had when you started working on it?
Well, I had written my first book, Be Heard Now, 25 years ago. And since that book, I've been writing monthly and then weekly, so when COVID started, weekly articles. I had hundreds of articles, and I started to put them together and see that I had a book with subtle nuances of the work that I brought into the world about becoming, in a holistic, mindful way, becoming a fearless speaker without technique, without tips, without tricks, but with just the capacity to be with one person at a time in an audience and really see them so they feel seen. So I put all these articles together that come from different aspects of it, of the nuances. And this book, to me, is my legacy of everything I know about mindfully getting over public speaking anxiety. And it turns out that it's not just public speaking anxiety, it's private speaking anxiety, because how do we meet eyes? How do we breathe with people? How do we breathe with ourselves so that we can be authentic in our expression and in our listening? Because I teach listening, basically, because that's what the issue.
But you're listening with your soul.
Yeah, and my epiphany in terms of listening from the soul was that I thought that my block, until I was almost 50, I had this block in speaking. I was the most, anxious person you'll see in speaking. And I thought it was something I had to crash through. I had to break through this block of speaking. I had the epiphany. No, my problem was that I wasn't receiving the available listening. There's listening in the world. And in order to speak in a way that's comfortable for you and for your listeners,
You're breathing.
breathing and allowing the listening in. There is listening, but if you don't allow it in, you're fighting your own block in receiving love, actually.
Or what your mind is saying. You know how there's a critical dialogue. That critical dialogue starts to come in if you're not connected.
Right. And if you're connected, the critical dialogue is there, but you can talk about it.
Right.
And it will ease off if you can talk about it into intelligent listening.
There is so much in your book. The first thing I want to say is that I think it is a highly spiritual book. And I think that that was intentional on your part. I can feel it. You talk about listening as the higher intelligence in the room.
Yes.
Stillness, observation, and neutrality. And these are all spiritual concepts that I spend a lot of time teaching because I learn people can hear you best when you're neutral because it puts you in your heart.
It's interesting. Yes, it's spiritual, but but what the modality, the speaking circle modality I use, I'd never ostensibly say this is a spiritual process, but it's a way to get people in the back door because when they do what the instructions are, their spirituality becomes a natural piece of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, it's an amazing book. But the thing that I really like about it is it's practical. It's telling you how to do something in the physical world. And, I guess I could get a lot of people angry at me for saying this, but I really feel like, there is this wonderful spirituality that lifts you up to a higher place and nothing feels better. But all of it has to be applied in the physical world and it has to have a practical application. Or what good is it?
That's right. That's why the instructions are just absolutely here's what you do, here's what you don't do. You're opened up to something within that shows up when there's when there's powerful listening. I'm talking now about listening runs the show. When you allow that powerful listening in the room, everybody gets smarter, and you hardly see situations with groups where listening is the point, even though speaking is what brings people into it. I want to get over my fear of speaking. I'm doing a toast for my best friend, and I don't want to mess it up. So.
Well, that's an interesting thing that I sense about you right away is usually if I say something and it's spiritual, I have to wait a few seconds and I feel the person interpret it and then respond. I don't feel that interpretation time with you.
That's fascinating. You have a perspective on this that I need to hear more of because it's too nuanced for people to understand. But when they follow the instructions, it happens.
It happens.
It just happens.
Yeah. Okay, so you can help me with one of my panic moments, which is that when I teach a large class, because I'm an empath, I can see the energy fields of everyone right before I go on. And it's like in that second, I go like, ugh. But then once I've been talking for a few minutes, and if I wanted to, I could see the people, but I always know throughout who's engaged and who isn't. And I try to be spontaneous and change what I'm teaching for how they're responding.
Yes.
But it's just that feeling of being hit by so many energy fields at one time.
Yeah. Well, you say it's only for the first piece, for the first few minutes. So your strategy going in for the first few minutes can be a little different. For instance, one thing you can do is just get hit. And not, and mention, I'm an empath. So I see you. I see you almost too well. You can make it a little funny. Maybe there's or telling a story that relates to that. I suggest. Do you tell a story when you start to teach?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, a story like just a one or 2 minute story of some dramatic time in your life where maybe it involves wolves, you know?
That's what I was going to say. When I first started hearing wolves, and I didn't expect that at all.
Right.
And
Let
I
me
said,
come.
are you real? And they said, you've been looking for an herb. It grows on the mountain right in front of your house in this place. It's like, so I went and looked. Yeah, it did. And there were two or three more things like that. So I thought, well, this is so accurate. It must be true.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, but you probably wouldn't start with that story because some people will not want to
Yeah,
believe it. But some practical story that allows you to say, I see, I am an empath. People
yeah,
understand what that is.
right.
I feel you. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, it's going to take me a second to adjust, but I love it in that moment when I first feel you and I adjust to you.
Yeah,
Move into a place of love and then maybe go into breathing.
right. But it's not, it's part of your talk rather than I'm going to do that. You want to build it into your way of speaking rather than saying, we have to pause a second because I'm an empath. It's more like, this overwhelm.
Right.
I have to mention it. I have to say it because it feels good, but you won't know why I'm in such ecstasy just looking around because I'm sensing your life. I'm sensing who you are, not just your story or how you look,
Right.
but I'm feeling your magnificence. Imagine being
Yeah.
hit by 100 people's magnificence, and this. Let's all take a breath together around that.
Right. That's much better. Thank you. I see why you're so good at what you do, but you obviously love it.
Well, as somebody who, until I was almost 50, had no relationship with audiences, and to be able at 80, I stay young. I stay young because I'm expressive.
I never would have guessed you were 80, not in a million years.
I know. I can look at myself. I say, "Wow." Well, part of it is I owe my young looks to immaturity, and
Oh, okay.
it's funny because it's a little true. But so to be able, after living a life of such shyness and such less thanness, to have a voice and to stand in front of a group and be able to take 3 breaths and most people don't do that as speakers. They just boom, they just
I know.
take a few breaths and to feel what you feel, but I don't get it like you do.
Right.
But I meet it halfway. It's like, oh yeah, these are wonderful people, and I take a breath. I really see them when I breathe with them. So that's yes, this is ecstatic for me.
I can tell. I want to get there.
Wherever you are, you can be on a Zoom speaking circle.
I know. I wanted to ask you about that. How do you use Zoom for that? You do the same technique?
It's the same, except because the eyes, like it in an in-person circle, the first instruction is for the listeners to be available to the person up front with a soft, steady gaze of kind regard. So the listeners are asked to do that. And then the person up front is asked to be with one person at a time and really see them so they feel seen. The way that happens on Zoom is that, say it's my turn. Let's say there's 5 participants and me in gallery view, 3 and 3. It looks like an audience, but when it's my turn, the facilitator, me, would say 6 minutes with Lee, starting with a breath, calling your first name to the camera. So I take some breaths and I say, so Julia, I just mentioned your name.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear your name, you look in the camera.
Right. Because I'm trying to find you.
Right. But you're not, yeah. So you look in the camera
Right.
and then it's only for 10 or 15 seconds. And then, because in an in-person audience, maybe you spend 5 or 10 seconds with each person you're with. But so on Zoom, I say, Julia, you look in the camera, and then at a point, I say a few sentences, and I say, so Sam, and then Sam looks in the camera, and I look at Sam on the screen.
Hmm.
So I'm seeing him looking right at me.
Right.
So you're simulating. We don't in speaking stories. We don't call it eye contact. That's a technique. Eye contact. It's more like eye availability. So we learn on Zoom to be with one person at a time, to not have to speak, and to find the rhythm of how you change, how you look at different people. So when you do a bunch of Zoom circles, you could go out into the real world, the real world, as if that's not a real world. You're in the real world, and you bring with you the pace and the one at a timeness. You just don't call names. Everybody's with you the whole time.
Right.
Ah,
Yeah. So I'm taking a second here. And
it's
I,
okay.
and I was gonna say, because I'm not sure everyone understands this, tell them what stillness is.
Yeah. Oh, I can find stillness. This took me 50 years to figure out. If I take a breath, or maybe people watching or listening can take a breath.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, all the way in, and then all the way out, all the way down. And at the bottom of the breath, you don't have to breathe in for maybe 10, 15 seconds. So you're totally stopped. And that's where I find my stillness at the bottom of my belly. Some people say, oh, I feel stillness in my heart. You go to a place of stillness that you've that and then well, you're saying you're hearing me define the stillness, and I'm using the word stillness. Do you find that place of ease, a quietness? Nothing's going on. It's like a meditative state. I call that state of stillness, and we speak from that stillness.
So we sort of stop the motion of the world for a moment and find the pause within us.
Wow, very well put. Thank you. That's going to go in my next newsletter.
Okay. Well, everything around you stops when you move into the pause.
Yes. So what does that do for you, Julia, when you move into the pause in front of people? Are you still getting, are you still,
It turns off the information for a second, but then when I start breathing again, it becomes information.
uh, so you wait till
Like,
you're
like
back?
for example, one thing I would say to you right now is you're a lot more intuitive than you allow yourself to be. When we were doing that breath, I could feel that.
That I'm more intuitive than
Allow yourself to be.
I think that's accurate. I work on intuition, not on emotion. Maybe you can tell that too.
Well, it is an emotion because when you're connected to something that's truth, and this is just a funny example, but I was driving by what's supposed to be a new shopping center, and I thought, I've been working on that for almost a year. I wonder when it will open. I guess I could look it up. And then I heard very clearly it will be open. They're trying to open at the end of May, but it will probably be early summer. And I thought about it and I thought, that's correct. So I ask a question and I get an answer from the universe.
Uh,
Because how could I know? I don't know, but some part of me does. So it puts me into that place where the great mystery is, where it starts to speak through us instead of thinking, what am I going to say next? It comes through.
yes, that intelligence that we have, that connection to truth, to reality. Uh, everyone has that, and they don't hardly ever talk from that. So my whole life is about my work is about putting people in a situation where they start reporting their intelligence. Like they'll start very often people come to a circle, they have an issue, something they want to deal with, a story that's not over. And they tell it, and then they breathe, and then answers come. It's not as if they say, "Oh, I just got an epiphany. The answer just came." It's more that they don't even know. Their conversation turns to resolving
Right.
because their intelligence knows how to handle it, and that's the intelligence that's so tricky. What's the word? To get to that
To get to that.
in a group.
Yeah.
So the facilitator, we just did a facilitator training for people who are to do these circles. So the facilitator, as we try to teach, but again, it's hard to teach, they have to catch it, is to be so wide open and friendly and kind, not nice, but kind and accepting, and just create and to respond to issues or things, and to do the protocol from a place of from that still place. And people go there, they love it because it makes them, they belong. No, but people don't feel they belong in their body. I never did. My body, in the world, in their family. Well, here's a room of people that just met, say, or as a speaker, you have that capacity to create this feeling of belonging and connectedness. People crave belonging, and you're giving it to them, not by doing and informing, but by your own being in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking that that's where you were talking about the inner genius and how that comes out. I do know most people who are intuitive like me. Now, I was very loved growing up. I don't want to say anything that's not nice about my childhood, although I do sometimes. But, but I was, as much as they loved me, I was still so different from them because of my intuition. And sometimes I would know things that were going to happen, and I could see they were absolutely horrified when they actually took place. Like, who is she?
Well, I think most children are in our cultures. It's not as necessarily as extreme as your differentness, but
Right.
many of us come in the world at whatever our differentness is, or our uniqueness as an individual.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. It's how we're unique.
Yeah, it's not seen as okay.
Yeah.
we need to correct you so that you're not so excited or
I know. Or enthusiastic, or you don't think that life is as wonderful as you think it is.
Or if you're crying and you don't know why, and
Yeah.
hey, that's okay, but it's not for so many of us.
No, it's not. And I think there is an energy in the world right now that is developing and growing stronger, and a big thing for all of us. I mean, you obviously have really honed your skill with it, but it's to learn how to become that person. And I think you're saying in your speaker circles and with your breathing that people are able to do that.
And it never ends. The learning never ends. You say, I've honed it. I've got so much further to go.
Yeah, but that means you're good at it if you think that. It's like someone who tells you they're very intelligent. I'll think, well, I don't think they've studied a lot. Because anybody who's really intelligent knows there's always someone who's so much more intelligent than you are. Seriously.
See, you're saying something's happening in the world that's
magical. And it's just a little bit at a time, but there are all these sparks. And I think if people can accept that they're being different, their authenticity, their gifts are important, then it would make a big difference because the universe loves you as you are.
Yeah. And it's, there's a little sadness I have that, I video everything. All my work is video, so people have it on video to look at. The idea is see how you show up, and people show up so beautifully, and many of them still won't watch their videos, and they lose the opportunity to see their own magnificence.
And you talk a lot about mirror work and saying good things to yourself. I swear I'm going to go back to this now that I read it, but I used to tell myself every night that I loved myself, and I would send like light to my reflection. And it was amazing how much better I felt and how much better I looked.
Well, I have my trusty mirror right here.
Oh, good. Go ahead and do it for us.
You can even see you on there.
I know.
I have a whole chapter on mirror work and with exercises. And I know the mirror work has been done in therapy and over the years. And I looked at how some were done, and one, the idea of saying I love you," that doesn't work for me and for many people, like affirmations. But the way I do mirror work with people is I start with just take 30 seconds and breathe with yourself. And then, but people have judgments. They say, "Oh, I have wrinkles." Well, after like 15 minutes of doing what you're doing, having conversations, one woman in her 70s who started off being, "I don't like my face," 15 minutes later was saying, "Oh, this is how God sees my wrinkles."
Well, actually, that wasn't completely true. I send pink light to my image because that's supposed to be like universal love.
Because
Or
I
you
have
don't criticize anything. I'm just
no,
sending love.
yeah, you just feel,
That's
yeah,
easier than saying I love myself.
right, right, right. So the idea is in these exercises is to, and by the way, it's hard. If anybody contacts me, I'll send you some articles about this, getting started in the mirror, because I think this is key for many people because they're not even ready to do it with a partner, to do these exercises with a partner. Okay, do it in the privacy of your own place. And I do it on Zoom. We both have a mirror. I say, "How was that?" And they say, "I didn't like it. Oh, I don't like my face." I say, "Okay, so now take some breaths and tell yourself, talk to yourself. Take 30 seconds and tell yourself how much you don't like looking at yourself. You'll be honest. And what the idea is to find a friend in the mirror. That's
Well,
that's
children all
key.
do it. They always think they're beautiful. They can't get away from the reflection. Mm. They'll say, "Don't you think I'm so pretty? Oh, I'm so handsome." I'm thinking, wow, I wish I could feel that way.
Yeah, but a lot of parents, when they say, "Oh, I'm so pretty," say, "Don't do that. Don't be what, egotistical." They
Always said, "Of course you're beautiful," or "Of course you're handsome. What else could you be?"
that would be the way to go.
Yeah, and both my children, I would say physically are beautiful people, but they have no vanity about it.
Wow,
So that really worked out well.
that's
My
good.
parents would tell me stop looking in the mirror, but
That's
I
it.
never did. I just said,
Great.
"Oh, you are so beautiful," or "You are so handsome."
That's so wonderful that you brought that to your next generation a self-respect, a self-love that make so goes in the right direction for your family.
I know. So we're getting ready to go to break now. So you're all listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. I have a wonderful guest, Glickstein, and he's speaking about his book, Be Seen Now. And we're also talking about a lot of spiritual concepts. So no matter how you feel about talking, you can learn a lot. And we'll be right back. On speaking naturally and well, whether it's on Zoom or with a large group. He's also been talking a lot about our souls and being who we are. So pretty fascinating. So stay with us for the next half hour and learn more. Okay, so Lee, you were going to tell us about the different parts of giving a speech.
Well, the most important part is the first 5 minutes, the opening, where you're saying hello, get to know me. Many speakers, they start right in with the information or a joke or something like that. So my work with professional speakers and people who want to be speakers, and they're going to do a talk, even if it's a small talk or a huge talk. But the thing to do is always this: take 3 breaths, look around, plant your feet into the floor. Now, people don't want to do this because they think people are going to say, "Cat got your tongue," like maybe happened when they were children or something. but you really want to establish that stillness in the room in yourself, and people will follow. And then tell a story, a 1 or 2 minute story from your life, something where you were facing adversity or failure, or something was not quite right, and it's a scene from your life. Like if you were going to have a movie, a biography of your life, it would be the first scene, maybe as a child, or it could be at any age where something happened. You could see the scene, but you say one sentence. For the first sentence is important. We work on this for a while because, say, for instance, if I'm doing a talk and I'm talking about, well, I'll just tell you the first sentence of a talk for me. When my mom was dying, I was sitting at her bedside and she wasn't able to speak. So it's a sentence that brings people into a situation that they could picture, and then you take a full breath so everybody gets there. By the way, I'm assuming, Julia, that the person I'm talking to about a talk knows something and wants to impart it. You can't just do this to do as an exercise. You've got something, and as I've noticed in speaking circles, after a while, people who start off by saying, "I don't really have much to say," winds up they have something that that humanity can use. We all have a piece of humanity, what humanity wants. So you tell the story very conversationally, not like dramatically. You let them feel the drama. You'll tell the story. In my case, it would be so with my mother, but we were looking at each other, and I felt I knew her. I knew more about her than I ever did when she was healthy. It's like we were listening. Something about listening. I haven't told this story in so long. I forget exactly where it goes, but it's about that we were listening and listening. Since then, I've realized that listening is key in relating. That's the big thing in speaking. So I'm here today. Anyway, you tell the story and how that moment led to your passion, to what you study, to what you became an expert in. And I'm here today to talk to you about how to be a better listener, So it's an arc that goes from, it tells you who I am. It's a piece of who I am. And then in the opening, and you could read this in the book, but just briefly.
It's different to hear it.
Yeah, briefly. Then the talk is in 3 parts, and the first part is the problem. What's the laundry? What are we suffering from? What's the without solving it, without telling them what to do about it, what the problem is that you're there to deal with. The laundry list of suffering around it, or whatever. And then the next piece is really important. It's shifting the paradigm. To basically say, usually the problem is not what it seems to be. Here's what the problem really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I know, but I haven't had much success in saying that. I do better with teaching shifting than saying what the problem really is, and then I come back to it.
Right. You do it in your own way. You do it in your own way. You're letting them know why they're suffering, or what it is they want to get out of. And then you're saying, and here is the piece I have that you could get
so
started.
Good at this. Look at you aren't looking, but I am. Your expressions, your hand movements, it's great.
And then the third part is what people usually start with. It's the plan of action. It's the action steps. Is now that you know who I am, why I'm here. Oh, and in that opening, you're also, by the way, back to the opening, after you say, the problem, you actually have a sentence for each. First we're going to talk about what the problem is.
Right.
A sentence or two. And then we're going to talk about what the real problem is, or we're going to find out that something. It's just a sentence each. And then we'll find out what steps to take to deal with it. And then you do those 3 things. And the third thing is the steps. But Julia, most of the steps are the same. Everybody's got, it's not like you've got new things, but by the time they hear these other things, they're ready to understand what needs to be done or what they can do.
Well, it colors it. It's like saying we have to move the cushion off the sofa, but there are 50 cushions. You've told me which cushion it is I need to move.
You're good at this.
Yeah, I'm great at it.
Whatever this is.
Whatever this is, there's something bigger than me that comes through me is the best way I can say that.
Yeah.
But it is a very strange thing that if you can say, we're going to work on this because this is what the problem really is, it immediately changes. If you do action steps first, everybody just withdraws.
Yeah. And that's really what people are doing up there. They're trying to solve the problem up
I
there.
know. And they say, no, you just make yourself do this. And I'm like, I don't even want to do it. What are you talking about?
I don't even want to listen to you
Yeah.
telling me what to do.
That's it.
But I will sit here with a face that's pretending to be
Exactly.
okay. Because the audience is dressed well, maybe if that's the kind of group you're
Right.
with, and they look like they have it together. And what's going on in their heads is so different from what you're seeing. Although you're one of the people who could see what's going on.
Right. But I do know it helps people a lot if I say you may not have the problem in the same way, but this is how I experience it. And it's something anyone who's growing or wanting more light or wanting more openness has to figure out their way of doing it. But here's some suggestions. Let's see if they
Yeah.
work for you.
Yeah. Well, you've found your way to do it, to basically do the what works. You
Yeah.
figured that out, and it looks yeah. But it's a
But if I
similar
said every day you have
situation.
to wake up and meditate, nobody's going to do that.
Right.
If I say if you can just work in 5 or 10 minutes once or twice a day, you'll be amazed at how much better your life feels. Everybody goes, I want to feel better.
Wow.
But if you skip it, it's okay. Just come back to it. It's not going away. It's sitting here waiting for you.
Uh, well, this reminds me of one of the things I just did a facilitator training here in California. People who've come to circles and are uh, studying to be a facilitator of circles in their area. And what I tell them, there's a lot when you do the protocol and there's a camera and it's in person, there's a lot of things you have to say, a lot of ways to introduce it, and you have to make this clear and the ground rules and what's the confidentiality. And people get hung up on they got to do that right, they got to do that right, they got to do that right. And I'm saying, no, these things will fall into place. As they're practicing, they think they're making mistakes. No, you're practicing, you're learning. But why people will come to your speaking circles, which is really what you want them to come week after week. The reason they come is because of the space you're creating that makes them feel, that brings out their best and makes them feel they belong. The kind space, the space with some humor in it. The lightness is in it. The lightness is in it, but holding the safety. Got to hold the safety, but holding the safety while creating this kind oneness in the room. That's why they come back. That's why they come back.
That's the one thing in our universe that works.
Right.
Consistently. That's about it.
And that's all I want to teach. That's what you teach.
Yeah.
We're all teaching the same thing.
I mean, if I ever find something else that works, I'll tell everybody. But so far, it's the only thing I've found.
Yeah.
But it's different for everybody because, I mean, this is such an important part. We're saying the same thing, but you have a completely different expression of it. But it's still the same.
That's what I think when I see speakers. We're all teaching the same thing from the absolute unique places that based on the story of our life, based on how it showed up for us.
Right. And that's what I always say too when people say, are we going to the new earth? When is the awakening going to happen? When is the shift coming? I'll say, well, that's when everybody is at a higher point. There's no way of predicting that, but I can tell you this, your unique take on life, what you think should be here that's not here, that's super important because you're giving us the imagination, you're giving us the energy to create new things. No one has it but you.
As I was listening to that last sentence, to what you said, I realized those exact words could be said by many other people, those
Right.
exact words, but they wouldn't sound, they wouldn't convey what you convey because it's coming from your being, from your presence, from your
Right.
that. How do you teach that? But but those
I keep
exact
seeing it in them. I keep thinking about when I wasn't awake yet and I hadn't felt it yet, but I knew it was there. And what are the things that make you take that leap into your own vibratory specialness and put you
right.
in a place of oneness? Because when you can do it, as we're doing it now, we're getting a response from the universe. It's true.
I can't stop realizing that such wisdom show is spoken. That's wisdom speaking. But if it's not if it's not spoken from that, what do we want to call that place? That authentic place.
Right. Or that place of connection with the universe
Yeah,
is
the
what I
place
call
of
it.
connection with the universe and the connection with the people you're talking to.
Right.
If it's just a little off that space, it's didactic.
They're
It's
static.
yeah, yeah. There's
They're
a
static.
feeling of something, and people don't know why it's not.
Right.
In fact, they're saying, "Oh, that's true. That's good." I mean, they're thinking,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is good." But when it's coming from where it's coming from in you, that's what charisma is.
Hmm.
That's what magnetism is. It's
Well, that's what I told you when you first came on. There's not that static that there normally is between me and another speaker. You move right into the wave.
I'm going to have to watch this video every day in order to see my best, because you're seeing
Hmm.
my best.
Yes.
That's what we do. When you look into an audience, you see their best. But the way you see their best is you see them so they feel seen. That's that expression. That is a simple way to put something that's so ephemeral. What does it mean when you're the speaker that you're with one person at a time and you're seeing them so they feel seen? There's no technique about that. You
No.
can only do it over and over, breathe a lot, and then you start to notice, oh, I can see people so they feel seen, and I can also speak in their direction
Right.
at the same
Well, like
time.
one thing that's fun to me about talking to you is you're not as serious as I am. And so a part of me is going, oh, he's really fun about all this. This is great. Let's see where we go.
Well, if I was interviewing you, I'd get that.
Right. You might have it the other way around, right? But that part is, I think that goes back to what we were saying about oneness. When you're in that connection, you have to be spontaneous.
You can't help it.
You can't help it.
That's why in speaking circles, there's no script, there's no plan, there's no memorizing, there's no need to talk. I did the circles in Dublin for people who stammer. Remember, Irish people who stammer, that's a toughie because they're such
I
good
bet.
storytellers. And, and I say you don't have to speak, but be with one person at a time. What does that do to their stammering? They don't have to speak. So when they do speak, it's because they have something to say.
A door opens.
A door opens.
Yeah,
So
that's something about the universe. If you can get to that thing about oneness, or with you express what you know to be true, then the door opens.
yeah. And you don't have to stutter
Yeah,
because you're speaking. Perhaps when you start to speak, you're speaking like this. Oh, hello.
yeah,
I wonder what's cooking. What's good? What do I have to say? Yes, I stutter, but I'm some miracle. I'm not stuttering now.
right. That's a pretty great thing to do. Oh, this is hilarious. We said we would open up this book to a page and talk a little bit about it with the rest of our time.
A
So I got,
a
yeah,
random page.
a
Okay.
random page. Commune with your goodness and laugh at yourself and with yourself.
That's the mirror? Is that in the mirror section?
Windows of the soul section.
Could you read a
It
sentence?
is under mirror. It is under mirror. It's windows of the soul.
Yeah, Windows of the Soul. Yeah, well, I can just I can feel into that. Maybe your
Well, I
viewers can
think
feel into
commune
it.
with your goodness is, even if you're a really good person, it's hard to see it because we all have that critical thing and we're all trying to improve. Like, we were saying when you take a class and they say, and you will do this every day, and you will do it this way, and you will do it that way, and you go, I'm not up to it. Please leave me alone.
Well, what commune with your goodness leads me to is that in the speaking circle, after the 6 or 7 minute turn in the middle, the longer turn, we have appreciations. We used to call it positive feedback, but now we call it essence appreciation, where people give a word or two or three about about an aspect of your character, your presence, like luminous and vulnerable power, something positive, nothing about their content, nothing about their process.
Right.
And what you're doing is and then you watch that on video and you're hearing it and you repeat it. You repeat the appreciation. That allows you to commune with your goodness, to own your goodness.
Well, you're really good at that one because it makes me feel better about myself for you to just say it.
You want to pick another random page?
Sure. All right. I'll pick one from the front this time.
Yeah.
Practice, I guess. Oh, how about be an agent of peace? That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, that I think starts with Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says that when people were escaping from Thailand, had to
Yeah.
escape.
Yeah.
And they'd go in boats, and it'd be a bunch of peoples in boats, and some boats would survive, and some boats would crash. And he said the ones that worked, there was one person who kept calm in the storm. Just one person who could allow people to feel seen, taken in. That's leadership. And that's not like we're going to do this or let's do that. Maybe there's a guy saying we should row that way, but they're trying to lead. But the true leader is there appreciating the people, and people start to, it's like a lightning rod. That person becomes a leader,
And you
sometimes a very
asked,
quiet
who
leader.
was your person who did that in your life?
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And for me, that was my great grandmother, and only because everyone in my family had had children in their early 20s, but she had been born into the reconstruction of the Deep South after everything had been pretty much burned down in Sherman's march from Atlanta to the sea. She grew up having sweet potatoes and greens. She married somebody who was really wealthy. She was forever grateful for that. But she went through the Great Depression. She went through so many things, because she was riding that horse and buggy to town when she was a child. And here we were flying in cars. She thought that life was such a miracle. But she had been through so much that everybody would be going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And she would say, let me think about it for a while.
You got a lot from her.
A whole lot from her. She was amazing.
I had my grandma Lena, I write about, talk about somebody at the core of goodness. And she had a wooden leg and she was large and she'd clunk around the house and she would knit a lot. But she lived with us. My grandparents lived with us for several years. And every time I'd pass her or she'd pass me, she'd just give me a look.
Yeah, something about that generation was very loving.
She said it would be like she's saying, you're okay. You're okay. And thousands of those looks. And that's what I got from her. And I tell you, without those, like she saw my soul. She saw me. Nobody else saw me. School, work, nobody saw me. Friends even, they didn't see me. She just saw me. And she was a figure that if not for her, for those thousands of looks, I don't think I'd have the tools to overcome the childhood trauma.
Right, because it interrupts it.
I think grandparents are incredible resources. Give us so much. They're not as close as our parents to having to deal with us.
Right. It's not their job to civilize us. It's their job to love us.
Yes.
Yeah. And so all of that is really fun. Okay, so let's do one more quick one, because seem to be going in a good place with this. Let's see. We talked about gaze already. Seeing others through the lens of magnificence. We did that. I think part of this too is about you go beyond just being yourself. And when I'm looking here, you have the roots of self-consciousness. So for us to talk the way we are, I kind of have to forget about who I think I am to do it.
I don't know what it is, who I am. I have no idea who I am. In a sense, there's just now.
Well, that's great.
Or I'm getting that from you now.
Yeah. Well, I think I have an image that I project, but then I'll realize I'm getting stuck, and then I'll come back to, well, it's okay not to know. It's okay to pick up things and work on them and put them down and move to something else. It's okay that I want to go outside and listen to the birds. And then it's like when I get to that, I start to get to freedom, and I actually produce a lot more than I do when I'm trying to be the me that I have an image of. That for me is what it is. I don't know what it is for you or what you teach.
Nor do I. At this moment,
Right.
I know nothing. Easygoing in the not knowing. That's a key. That when you're up in front of a room where you're talking to somebody and you don't know what you're going to say, we have most people come into circles and they don't know what to say next, and they contract.
Right.
But eventually, they don't know, and they don't care that they don't know, and they're just being with people. And I call that easygoing in the not knowing, and that's key in being comfortable with people, being comfortable in front of groups. Is I don't know, and so what?
Yeah, and there are lots of things I don't know. If I think about them, I might get an answer, but it doesn't mean I know them at the moment.
Right. I'm just enjoying being with you.
But you just said something so important, because when we feel whatever it is not right, we contract. And when we feel good, we expand.
Yeah.
And that's true with spiritual truth too. You know when it's true because your whole body gets this flood of energy.
Yeah. And you probably know how this relates to brain neuroplasticity.
A little, probably not as much as you know if I'm reading you correctly.
Well, that it's not just we learn to behave more kindly in our spiritual development, but it's actually we're building new neural pathways. So, like when I had awful stage fright most of my life, I had my brain, my neural pathways were built. I don't know why I always go like this, like they always go that way. I don't know, whatever's going on in the brain, these little teeny weeny things I am wired. I was wired at a young age when I was looked at by one or more people. I was wired to be to contract and to be anxious. So my first 45 years in life, I was wired with people to be anxious and contracted. And then through practice, my own work, I found developed new wiring that associated being seen with expansion and pleasure. And that's in the brain change, not just that's how behavior changes through spiritual or psychological processes.
And that's what oneness does. It's that expansion.
Right. We expand until there's no borders, that we're a oneness. Yeah, we're in oneness. You want to speak from oneness to groups or to your friend.
I also think it pulls us into places we would never go otherwise. And that's what you're really talking about with the brain.
Right.
Is that expansion into the unknown or the mystery, because no matter how much we know, the universe is still a great mystery.
Yeah. And if we relax into the mystery, we can find new resources within.
That's right. So we're almost at the end, would you tell our listeners about your website and any upcoming activities and how to get in touch with you if they want to?
I want to show you my book.
Yeah, I'll hold it up too. Here we go.
Oh,
Mine's got markers in it.
Real background.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the best way to contact me, I love emails. I'd love to get your email.
Yeah.
Lee at speakingcircles.com. And my website is speakingcirclesinternational.com. And the best way to work with me is to come to a Zoom circle. And I do 15-minute, no fee orientations, chats to see if we can work together. I don't try to sell. I just show you what we can do on Zoom, wherever you are. If you have a Zoom connection, that's the best way to connect with me.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. And for everyone, you can find me at onetrueself.com. You can sign up for my newsletter and get tips on the energy and astrology. And I do write about the wolves, messages I send. So come and find me on my website. And thank you so much for being here with us. And I'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for listening. Namaste.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.